Hi, everyone. Sharon, do you want me to start?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, sorry. I wasn't sure if there was a cue for me. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Riaz Mehta. I'm the CEO and founder of All Rights. Today, I'm going to share the journey of the startup and a bit about my own personal story as well in the media and entertainment world, and how I came to All Rights as a platform solution and the journey that we have done since its inception. I'm happy for the session to be fairly interactive. If people want to ask questions, they're welcome to do so. If there's any specific agenda, if there's anything that you would like to get out of this session, then please put that in the chat as well so that I can understand where you're coming from and I can do my best to address any points that you would like me to address. So a little bit about myself. I started my career initially as a software developer, and that was in Sydney, Australia, degree in computer science quite a few years back. And the early part of my career was in tech. So initially developing software, and then I moved into basically the business development side of technology. And I was with an Australian technology firm that when I joined them, they had about 20 people. And as the company grew, I was with them through many stages of the evolution. We went through a public listing on the Australian Stock Exchange, became the largest technology firm in Australia, and we acquired a number of companies. And it was a very exciting journey. It was in kind of the dot-com days, and tech companies were booming. And of course, then we saw the crash as well beyond the boom. And our business, the one that I worked for actually did really well because we were a real business and the fundamentals were strong. And that always goes to show that regardless of what's happening in the markets, building a strong foundation for a business is the key to success. And it's that journey that actually brought me to Singapore in the early 2000s that after our company listed, I came to Singapore to set up the business operations for the company was called CAS, and in Asia, which I did successfully. And then a couple of years later, we were acquired by a company called Telstra, which is a big telco in Australia. So at that point, I had done various stages of a startup's journey. I joined the startup from the very early days, saw them through to an IPO and through to a trade sale. And I was fortunate that that journey brought me to Singapore, and I call that my home now. It's a wonderful place to live. And I learned a lot through that journey in terms of what it takes to actually build a business from scratch, having watched the founder of that business do it from its early days and through to take it towards an exit. And of course, in my heart, I've always been an entrepreneur, and I wanted to do that for myself. And after the company got acquired by Telstra, I decided that I would pursue my own passion. And I always had a bit of a creative streak in me. I was fascinated by creative things, whether it be fashion or media. And at that point, I had a friend in the industry that used to manage an Australian band called INXS. And most of you guys may not have heard of that band. That was quite a bit ago. But he was looking to revive their career. And he was looking to launch a TV show to find the lead singer for that band, because the lead singer died back in the 90s. And I was having a conversation with him, and he basically said, hey, I want to do this. And we started workshopping an idea for a TV show. And ultimately, that TV show got pitched to a well-known producer called Mark Burnett in the US. And Burnett was renowned for shows like The Survivor and The Apprentice. And my friend David ended up making a show called Rockstar in Excess, and the show became quite successful. And my involvement with that particular show really drove that passion in me to be in the content industry. And at that point, I had no idea how to make a television show, but I knew in my heart that that's what I wanted to pursue as a career. And I decided, okay, I'm going to quit my day job, so to speak. I'd done the whole journey with tech, and I set up a television production company based in Singapore. Guys, tell me if I'm going too fast. I don't know how the translation service works, but if you need me to slow down, then I'm happy to slow down. Sharon, is the space okay?
Everything's fine, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I decided to create a television production company, and I did not know the first thing about how to make a TV show. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll start off by licensing formats. And the first thing that I did was I approached Mark Burnett, who I'd met through my friend through David, and he was like the biggest producer in reality TV in the US. And I thought, okay, if I can work with him, I'll learn a lot about how the industry works, and great to learn from the best person in the industry. And I was fortunate to have an inroad through my friend. And at that point, I had not produced a single thing, and I managed to convince Mark that I was the right partner in Asia, that he should license his formats to me. And that in itself was quite a journey, because I hadn't done it before. And, you know, in creating something from scratch, sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. And I was doing a little bit of that. So I went to LA. I secured a license for a show called The Contender, which was basically a fight show reality TV format with Sylvester Stallone. And my vision was to bring that to Asia and to create an Asian version with Muay Thai, which is an Asian fight sport. And I paid for that license out of my own pocket. I had no idea how to make a television show and how to actually fund it either. So I came to Asia, and I realized, fantastic, now I had a license, and I started hiring some crew from Mark Burnett, and I thought I'll go and make a TV show. Very soon I realized that making a television show is a complex exercise, and it is a very costly exercise. And I was funding this myself, and I didn't know how much it would cost. Ultimately, that show ended up costing around $7 million, and I'm glad I didn't keep on funding it, because it would have probably sent me broke at that point. So then I looked at, okay, how do I fund a show of this scale? And I saw what Burnett was doing in the US with shows like The Apprentice, that he was working with brand partners to secure funding for his content. And each episode of The Apprentice, he would approach a brand and sell that episode to that brand for several $1 million. And shows like The Apprentice became hugely successful, and Mark made a ton of money out of that. And that paradigm didn't exist in Asia, or the paradigm of branded content. And I thought, okay, maybe I'll adopt that. So I started talking to potential brand partners, and no one had heard of the branded content paradigm. People were still doing traditional television commercials, 30-second commercials, and this was quite foreign to them. Cut a long story short, I managed to convince a few partners to come on board. I secured the funding for that show, and I went ahead to produce that format. And even while I was producing it, I had a team of like 150 people that were on the show, and they were looking to me for direction as a producer. And I had never made a TV show in my life before. So it was literally, I had to kind of wing it. I had to figure out what to do. And I hired some really good people around me. And that show went on to become a huge success. We sold it to around 40 countries internationally, was a ratings hit within Asia. And that journey from inception of me having an idea that I wanted to have a TV production company to actually having the first show off the ground took about 3 years. It was a topsy-turvy journey, and it kind of taught me what it takes to actually create a startup from nothing, to create something that you may not even have experience in within that industry, and to bring it to fruition. The thing that it took was sheer commitment and not giving up. Doesn't matter what obstacles came my way. I had a vision that I wanted to fulfill, and I kept at it, did whatever it took, and took every opportunity that came my way and explored every single avenue to bring my vision to fruition. Once I had done that, then of course the journey became easier. That was the hardest part, going from 0 to 1. And you'll find that with any kind of startup journey, it's like when you come up with an idea, to bring that idea to life is the toughest part of the journey. Once you have actually done that, then taking it to the next level gets easier. It's not always easy, but it's an easier journey from where you first started. I then went on to I went on to produce a number of licensed formats. I did shows like The Biggest Loser. I did a number of other American reality TV shows that I brought into Asia, using the same branded content paradigm, using brand partners to fund my content. And then, of course, I realized that ultimately in this industry, you don't make any real money unless you have your own IP. And so I went on to build a number of television formats that were my own original IP. And I created shows like The Apartment. I created a show called The Challenger, which was nominated for an Emmy Award, which is kind of the highest award within the entertainment industry globally. And at that point, I realized that my vision of being a television producer had come to life, that I was recognized by the industry. And I had done that with zero training, without any knowledge, without any background, and simply by taking initiative and following my dream. And over the years, I went on to produce a number of different reality TV shows. My shows are broadcast across Asia on networks such as Sony, Fox, NBC. My shows have also broadcast in the US on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, a number of other platforms as well. And as I was going along this journey, I would be creating content, and I would be appointing distributors to sell my content. And in case you guys are not familiar with how the entertainment industry works, typically what happens is you come up with an idea, you get that idea funded either through brand partnerships or through broadcast networks or through investors. And then once you've actually created that movie or the TV series, then beyond its initial broadcast, you can actually monetize it across the entire globe. And monetization potential for content is huge, because once you have a film or TV show, you make it in one country, you can sell it to 200 countries. You can sell it to multiple platforms on streaming platforms like Netflix or free-to-air broadcasters, cable TV broadcasters. So there's over 600 ways in which you can monetize a single piece of content. And in fact, it's infinite because it's not time-bound. Content can be monetized repeatedly for, since the beginning of when movies first started being made. So for the last 100 years, even content that was produced 50, 60 years ago still generates revenue today. That's why it's a great industry to be in, because you make something once, you sell it many, many, many times. But the way you sell that content traditionally has been through middlemen. And these middlemen are distribution companies. So often these distribution companies are either small shops, they have 5 or 10 salespeople that basically have a catalog of content, and they will go to trade fairs. Trade fairs are markets such as MIPCOM, Cannes Film Festival, LA Screenings. There's roughly 800 such trade fairs within our industry, and before COVID hit, these were all physical markets. A lot of these have gone online post-COVID. And these middlemen would basically take these content rights from the producer. They would go and pitch it to a different broadcaster, streaming platform. They would go to trade fairs, have one-on-one meetings. But the challenge is that they have limited bandwidth. They might have 5 or 10 salespeople, and each of these salespeople might know 50 or 60 different people. But at the end of the day, there's literally over 50,000 broadcast platforms across the globe. So it's impossible for a distribution company to reach all of these different potential parties. And the other challenge is that because of the way they conduct their business, it's extremely manual, which means that their overheads are very high. And they end up taking anywhere between a 30 to 50% slice of the sale. As a result, the rights holder ends up with maybe 50, maybe 60%, and they don't make as much money by the time the middlemen have taken their cut. And I was using these distribution companies myself for several years for my own content, until I came to a point that I had a distributor in the US, and this was around 2014, that this particular company owed us a lot of money, about $500,000, and they went out of business. We didn't see our money. And as an independent producer, that's a big hit, which it was around Christmas time, got me really worked up, and I felt there was something wrong, and I felt I had to do something about it. And that pain point became really personal for me. And that Christmas, I started thinking about, how do we change this? That creators are not empowered at the moment. They don't really control their destinies. That the way they create content, somebody has to provide the funding. They can come up with a great idea, but without the funding, they can't actually make the content. Somebody controls the distribution chain, and the producer has no control over how the content is actually being monetized. And that journey is what led me to All Rights. And I basically said, okay, I've had enough. I want to do something about it. And my idea was, okay, let's disrupt the middleman. I thought the middleman is the bad guy, right? That I've got to do something about this, that let me create a technology-based marketplace platform where we don't need the middleman, that we actually remove the layer of friction and releasing more value back to the rights holder, which means that the rights holder makes more money. The other thing that I believe was that with technology, you're no longer restricted to how many relationships you have in the market, whether it's, as a salesperson, 10, 20 people or 50 people or 100 people. Now with tech, you can market to tens of thousands of different potential buyers in one hit. And so that's how All Rights came about. The initial concept of All Rights was literally a B2B marketplace platform. And as a B2B marketplace platform, I felt that the way it would work is that rights holders would basically list their content on our platform. Rights holders would list their content on our platform for sale, and potential buyers could come and search the platform by genre, by category, by different languages as well, and be able to identify what they want the buyer and seller would connect via a platform and conduct a transaction, and boom, it's like buyer is happy, they found what they need, seller now has access to a lot more buyers, and the platform would take a 10% transaction fee. So now the vision was that we would lower that 40 or 50% fee that the middleman was taking and down to 10%, which means the seller gets 90% of the revenues generated. Everybody is happy in the ecosystem. And so we, at that point, when I came up with the business model, I was toying with it. I talked to a few industry professionals, got some ideas. Some people said, no, it's not going to work. Our industry is very much relationship-based. People will not go to a marketplace platform. And a lot of people tried to dissuade me from this concept. And there were some that actually believed it and said, yeah, this could actually work. It may not work for all content, but it can potentially work for, some of the longer tail content. And, people like Ricky Yao, he was the head of Sony Networks in Asia. He was a great supporter. He said, yep, if you built it, I would go and buy content from this platform. So the endorsements that I got from some established industry professionals that were leaders of the industry, I thought, okay, there are a few people that believe in it. So this was around, I came up with the concept in 2015. I kind of toyed with it. And then in 2017, I started actually building it out. And I built an MVP. I still had a production business at that point, and I was still producing reality TV shows. So this wasn't my full-time gig. And at that point, when I was building this platform, my vision was that we wanted to take Asian content to the world. And because I'd already been producing content in Asia, I strongly believe that Asia has everything that it takes to create Hollywood standard content that can be watched in different countries, that can be monetized at the same scale. And I think we've seen that happen over the last few years, especially with Korean content that has traveled internationally and really become mainstream, which even 2 or 3 years back was unprecedented. And this was my original vision. And as I was building this platform, of course, in the startup journey, you seek investment. Initially, I funded it myself and funded the MVP. And then it kind of got to a point that I felt that I need to bring in some external investment. And I started talking to different funds and angel investors. And then I had someone approach me, and someone that I kind of knew from social media but didn't know too well. And they said, hey, this is really interesting what you're doing. I would like to invest in your platform. And I thought, fantastic, it's exactly what I need at this point. And I started engaging with this person. Our conversations, he said, I really want to understand more about the platform and dive into more detail. And I thought, okay, the investor is doing their due diligence. So I started sharing more about the platform. And this process took like about 2 to 3 months. And at the end of that process, he said, you know what? I don't think I really want to invest. I'd like to work in the business, and I'd like to work with you. And you're full-time, producing shows, and you're trying to do this, and I'll take a lot of load off your shoulder, and I'll help drive this business. And I thought, okay, that's kind of, it was welcome at that point. And I said, great, I'll have another pair of hands. And he's worked in the advertising industry, and he could probably adapt to our industry. And so I brought the gentleman on as the CEO for All Rights in 2017. And we started working together. Everything was going well. We had, we of course signed paperwork. We had a deal structure agreed on the equity that he would get within the business. And then we went on fundraising journey, talking to different funds. And then this was around October 2017 that we actually had a Singapore-based fund say to us, great, we love the business model and we'll lead your seed round, and they were willing to pump in $1 million into our seed round. And that was a game changer. It's like, everything had been self-funded at that point, and I thought, fantastic, this turning point for the business. And we started negotiating a term sheet. And then a week before we were due to sign the term sheet, this gentleman, who was my then CEO, he says to me, I'd given him a 20% stake in the business, and he says to me, unless I have 51%, I'm not going to continue with this business, and I'm going to sabotage the fundraise, literally in those words. And I was shocked. I was horrified. I was going, how can you do that? It's like, we have a deal in place, and we're, we are at the turning point of our journey. And I thought we were living, breathing the same air in the office. We had worked together for close to a year, and this really took me aback. And then I thought, okay, we'll try and negotiate. And I even got to a point, I really wanted the business to succeed. I said, okay, you know what, I'll give you like 49%. And the guy, he just wouldn't let up. He said, no, unless I have 51, I'm not doing it. And it became a real bone of contention. We had a meeting scheduled with the VC to sign the term sheet on a Monday. And we even had celebratory drinks the week before with the VC, and with all of us present at the dinner table. And on the Saturday, I was still negotiating with the guy. He wouldn't give in. And on the Sunday, one of the VC partners, I met with him for a coffee, and I said, look, I think we have an issue. I need to give you a heads up because I really don't know what to do about it. And he was appreciative of the fact that I gave him a heads up. And we went into the meeting together with the VC on the Monday morning and sat in their office. And my CEO / business partner at that point basically says, guys, I'm out, I'm going to go and do my own thing. And needless to say, I tried to rescue that investment deal, but it wasn't possible. The VC said, we were investing in you guys as a team, and now, an important member of the team is gone, and they were horrified. I mean, they wouldn't talk to this person ever again. And but that basically killed the investment. The months of work that we had done, the due diligence, everything, it just came to a grinding halt. And I felt that there was a big nail in the coffin of the business, that I had another business that I was running, and suddenly this thing had kind of fallen off the cliff. And I had sunk quite a lot of my own money into it. And at that point, I decided, I'm not going to let this happen. I still want to keep going with what I believe. And I started looking for someone else that could help me in the business. And I did find someone who was really supportive, a lady called Karen. She came on board and worked for Sweat Equity and helped me kind of pick up the pieces at that point. And meantime, the other gentleman went on to form a competitive business, which still exists today in Singapore. And it was, literally they had taken our business model and even the look and feel of our platform and literally copied everything and went live in a couple of months thereafter. So that was a really big blow. And not only that, he also took a lot of the team members that I had within the business. So we were left with basically a shell. We had the technology and we didn't have anybody else, and till Karen joined us. So I had to find the resilience. I had to find it in me to actually keep going with this and keep believing in my vision. And that kind of brought us we'd done this journey through late 2017, 2018, and brought us to 2019. And this is when one of our advisors introduced us to SOSV. And SOSV was a turning point for our business. We did the China Accelerator program in Shanghai around March 2019. And I thought I had done the whole startup journey, having created my own business before. But what we learned through the whole SOSV journey was different techniques on how to scale the business and how to actually secure funding. And the grooming that we got was absolutely phenomenal. It's, I would say, SOSV are probably one of the best partners a startup can hope to have, and they have some of the best accelerator programs on the planet. So at that point, I got a new CTO, and we had a new team, and then we merrily went along this new journey with with the same vision. And we ended up raising a seed round towards the end of 2019 that was led by an Australian fund called Artesian, and of course SOSV participated in the round along with some others as well. And that kind of brought us into 2020. And everyone knows what happened in 2020. It's like, we're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, as we would say in Australia. We had the funding, we had a team, we were ready to go, and COVID hit. And at that point, I felt, hey, this is fantastic, because all these trade fairs are going to die, and people are still going to transact content somehow. So I felt that my original vision was going to get fast-tracked, and that we'd have tons of buyers and sellers coming to our platform, and we'd go through the roof. So what happened in reality was that we had a lot of buyers come to the platform. We had a lot of sellers. We had rapid growth in our user base, but we were not getting transaction activity. We found that people were coming to our platform, and they were basically discovering content, they were having conversations, but the deals weren't getting done. And it was tough, because we were burning through cash, and we weren't generating revenue for quite some time. And then, of course, as a founder, you go through these moments of self-doubt. You go, am I doing the right thing? It's like, I've spent years of my life building this platform that doesn't generate revenue, and what do I do now? And through that questioning, I started having discussions with my team, with my CTO, co-founder, Damien, as well. And what we realized was that the deals were getting stuck because there's a lot of new streaming platforms launching, and these are the guys that were signing up to our service. And these new streaming platforms are not like Netflix or Amazon with billions of dollars. They're startups as well, and they have limited funds, and they're extremely careful about how they deploy their funds. And so the decision process that they undertake to actually acquire content is fairly long, and pricing is a huge consideration for them. And often the buyer and seller couldn't agree on a price, and that's why the deals would fall apart. And the process took too long, and so we couldn't scale our platform the way we wanted to. So we realized that our original hypothesis of disrupting the middleman was good to some extent, but it didn't solve the underlying problem. What we had done was taken the current world dynamics on how deals were conducted in a very manual fashion and put that onto an e-commerce platform, but we hadn't solved the underlying issues that face the industry. So that led us to a pivot. And the pivot was basically realizing that the traditional content licensing model does not work. And I'll delve on that a little bit, right? So in the traditional content licensing model, what happens is, say I produce a film, and that film gets broadcast on, it goes in a theater, then it goes on to a TV platform. And when that television platform, say a streaming service or linear television broadcaster actually buys that content, they buy a 2 or 3 or 5 year license term. And they pay upfront for that in most cases. So effectively what happens is, this film, say it's sold to a broadcaster for $100,000, then that broadcaster has the rights for, say, a 2-year period to play that film as many times as they want on their linear television broadcast. And in doing that, they basically, they'll play that while the film is new, they'll play it in prime time, then they'll put it into off prime, then they'll put it into the afternoon slot, and then into the midnight slot, and so forth. And they keep recycling that content over and over again for that 2-year period to get the maximum value out of that license that they've purchased. Now, that paradigm has existed for about 100 years for linear television. And it's not a paradigm that really works for streaming platforms, because the way streaming platforms work, these guys need fresh content, the viewers need variety, and all the content is there on demand all the time. So you can't move it to a midnight slot, you cannot move it to an afternoon slot so that the viewer doesn't notice and it's not a different viewer. It's the same viewer seeing all the content at the same time. So the consumer habits have changed. So people are no longer watching linear television and appointment-driven television. They're watching content on demand when they want it, where they want it. And that's why a lot of streaming services are launching. And that's why people like Netflix and Amazon are extremely successful. However, the content licensing paradigm is not built for these guys. It's built for linear television. What the streamers want is flexibility, so that if a piece of content does not perform on their platform and doesn't garner viewership, then they need the flexibility to be able to change that content and switch that around and get something that the viewers do want. Whereas the old paradigm basically locks them into a long-term license, which means there's nothing they can do. They're stuck with that deal. And that's the reason why these guys take such a long time to make decisions, because they have to ensure that the acquisition will pay off over that 2-year term and that it's not gone to waste. So we developed a model which is basically content as a service. And effectively, the way it works is it's a subscription service. And so instead of a platform, a streaming service, buying a 2-year license upfront and say paying $100,000 for it, now they will basically pay a fixed monthly fee and have a volume of content that they will be able to access, and then they can tailor that content mix based on their audience demands. And at this point, I'm going to play a little video for you because it'll be the best way to demonstrate how this platform works. Bear with me for a moment.
Sarah wants to buy 100 hours of content for her streaming service. She soon finds out this will cost her $100,000 upfront to buy for a 1-year license. But she doesn't have $100,000 in her budget today, and she doesn't know if her audience will even like the content she picked. Sarah signs up for RightStream. She now pays only $8,000 per month. That is something she can afford. Here's how Sarah uses the RightStream platform. Sarah signs up for a 100-hour monthly subscription with all rights. She now signs into her RightStream user account and sees thousands of film and TV titles. Now she uses smart search functions on RightStream to shortlist action and adventure movies. She can play back a trailer or even a full-length feature film to see if it works for her audience. She now drags and drops this to her inventory for the next month. Content metadata and actual files are automatically delivered to her service through the AllRights API. AllRights expert content team can also curate titles for her if she needs some advice. She's now all set for broadcasting this content to her audience for next month. Each month, Sarah can change the content in her next month's inventory based on viewership data. It's like having 1,200 hours of content, but only paying for 100. Sarah now has freedom to grow her subscribers with minimal financial outlay. Join the content revolution today. RightStream.
Okay. So hopefully that makes it clear on how our new business model works. And we found this to be a game changer for us in the last few months since we launched it. Let me just go back to my PowerPoint now so I can share that. When we launched this new service, effectively, at that point, we just had an idea and we kind of, we started doing a little bit of digital marketing around it. And, you know, we built kind of a basic product. And, you know, what we found is that we had people coming in, you know, we use HubSpot and we had a lot of people, you know, inquiring about our service. And we were still flying under the radar because I was concerned that our competitors, especially this one company that's set up in Singapore that used to work for us before, would simply copy our business model because they're good at copying. And so we didn't announce to the world that this is what we're doing openly. And so we started doing a bit of stealth marketing, and we had some people inquiring about our service. And one lesson that I learned is you don't ignore anyone. So I think one of the first people that came to our platform, they were looking to set up their own streaming service, and the guy was a pilot. And I will sometimes take calls that come in because I really want to get to know my customers. And I happened to take that call, and I started talking to him. And he said, "Hey, I'm a pilot. I want to set up my own business. I want to set up a streaming platform in India." And, you know, this was kind of his baby. And so, you know, I talked to him. He said, "I'm cash constrained." And so I said, "Hey, I'm just launching this new service. Would you like to try it?" And the guy said, "Sounds exactly what I need." And so we got him on board as literally our first customer for this content as a service platform. And one of the lessons that I've learned is it doesn't matter who it is. You got to be open to people. You just don't know where that conversation might go. And yes, not all conversations will lead to something, but often a conversation will spark something that changes the direction of the business, and it gets you to double down on a certain strategy. And so he came on board first, and then as we started doing more digital marketing, we had more people join. And our business prior to this was not generating revenues. It's like, you know, it was trickles of revenues, maybe a few $1,000s, if that. And within 6 months, we found of launching this business model that we went from almost $0 to around actually we're close to about $7 million worth of revenue within this year, annual recurring revenue. And that happened because we built something that has a product market fit. That when we built a product that actually people like, that fulfills a need in the market, then revenues happen. That, you know, what we have found is that of course, our streaming platforms, our buyers absolutely love the product because it solves multiple pain points for them. It allows them to subscribe to a volume of content instead of spending, say, if they were acquiring, say, 100 hours of content, they might have to spend $200,000 to $300,000 upfront to acquire the content. Now they're spending maybe $10,000 a month, $12,000 a month. So now we have made their business very sustainable. And what I've seen myself over the last few years is that a lot of streamers have started up in Asia. We had companies like iFlix and Hook, and these were all very well-funded companies that went on to have unicorn status, and then they died. And they died because the way they were acquiring the content was too expensive, and they couldn't sustain it, that they couldn't acquire the user base fast enough, their revenues fast enough to actually justify the amount of money they were spending on the content. So now what we have done is we've flipped that model so that these streaming platforms can subscribe to a volume of content, and through that lower their upfront capital expenditure, which means they can spend more on marketing, which means they can grow their user base, the subscriber base, and then they can grow the content over time as well. And plus they have flexibility. So they, typically a streamer would need probably about 5,000 to 10,000 hours of content to ensure that the customer base was satisfied. Now they could have 1,000 hours and give the experience of having 5,000 hours because they can rotate that content on a regular basis as well. So we built a business model that our sellers absolutely love. And we have not encountered one single person that has said, no, I don't like this model, or I can't work with this. The challenges we have experienced are different. So everyone that we pitch our business model to on the buy side, they absolutely love it. They want to come on board. On the seller side, we have had to go through an education curve that what we are doing for the sellers is basically helping them monetize their content more effectively. In the old paradigm, the seller was waiting for a buyer to come along or a distributor to sell the content. The typical sales cycle could be as long as 6 months, sometimes even a year, before they sold that piece of content to a certain territory. What we now offer to rights holders or sellers is the ability for them to actually plug into our ecosystem and start generating revenue straight away. And it is not a revenue share model. A lot of people have tried revenue share, but it works in certain markets like the US, but not in all the markets where ad rates are not very high. What we do is we give our sellers a guaranteed amount as soon as the content is picked by a particular buyer, a particular streaming platform. They know exactly how much money they're going to make from that particular platform. And we give them a dashboard. They can see the content is being played in Africa, in the Middle East, in the US. They have clear visibility of all of that through our system. And what we have now done is basically given them transparency on where the content is being monetized, how much money they actually make from these different platforms, depending on where these platforms are based, because the rate depends on the tier of the platform as well as the geography where that platform is located. But the other thing that we have done, we have built tech in how we deliver this content. Traditionally, when content licensing deals were done, someone would buy a movie and that movie was delivered to them unencrypted. They could do whatever they wanted with it and play it on the system. And that could result in exploitation of rights beyond the contracted period, beyond the contracted terms. And there was no way for the rights holder to actually monitor that. Now what we do with RightStream, which is what we call our service, is that we actually deliver the content encrypted to our streaming platforms. And by delivering the encrypted files, every time the file plays, it has to check the authenticity of that platform, whether they have those particular rights with our server. So now we start gathering viewership data as well. And we make that viewership data available to our sellers as well. So not only have we now opened up a whole new universe, there's platforms that they can monetize their content on that they wouldn't have even heard of before, because a lot of them are startups, as well as established players. But we also give them real-time data so that now they can use that data to make more informed decisions about what happens with the content, what markets the content actually appeals to, what type of consumer enjoys the content, and it'll lead them to better choices in future. So the model that we have created is transformational for the industry as a whole, that it empowers the creators of content, and it also empowers the buyers of content. It reduces the friction, and because now we are providing a service, we package it up as a service layer that has a value add, so our own margins have improved as well. So it's a win-win for all parts of the ecosystem. And honestly, once you build something that the market likes, it works, and you attract better talent to your business because they believe in what you're doing. The people that we have in our team are extremely passionate about what we're building today, and we're on this journey, on a mission to really transform the industry in a way that even I couldn't have imagined a few years back. So where's All Rights today? We're an international team. We're head office in Singapore, but our team is distributed, and part of the reason is COVID, of course, because through this whole COVID period, we decided to hire people in whichever geography they happen to be. Our motto became, we just want the best people. We don't care if that person is based in the United States or Brazil or Russia or any other region. And as a result, we have become a truly global business. We have around 30 people in the business today, distributed in different geographies, and we are a 24/7 business. We have people that can support our customers in every single time zone. We have over 5,000 registered users on our platform, and if for a B2C business, that means nothing, but for a B2B business, that's a big deal, because that's 5,000 companies there, and some of them are large companies like your Sonys, your NBCs, and of course we have the very distributors that we set out to disintermediate initially, which was my initial hypothesis. They are our customers today, and we get a volume of content from these large distributors that give us their existing catalogs, and we get new content. We're starting to work with studios now as well, and it's a good base that keeps growing, of course. And of course, our revenues, this figure is a couple of months old, so our revenues are growing quite steadily as well. And overall, we have created a foundation for success. And in the early days, I spent a lot of time worrying about the competition, about what this other company in Singapore would do, or some of our other competitors around the world. But the lesson that I've learned is really about to focus on your own journey, that it's your own journey that really matters, that executing your own vision. And if you do that extremely well, it doesn't matter what the competition does. Of course, you got to keep an eye on them, but it's not about worrying what they do, because we as a business have to continue to keep evolving, innovating at every single step of the journey. And in that vein, I'd like to take a short break of about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and I will talk about what the next evolution is, because as a startup, you never ever stop. We came up with a great business model that's scaling well, but we have to keep thinking about, okay, what is next for us, and how do we even disrupt ourselves? And that'll be kind of the next topic that I will cover in this morning's presentation. But my throat is dry. I'm sure you guys have sat through quite a lot, and there's a lot to absorb. So how about we take a 10-minute break and then we'll resume here. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a little bit of a stretch and a drink. Where we left off was the journey that we have done to date and what our achievements are and what All Rights is today as a business. And what I want to share with you now is kind of our next step in our journey. And of course, what we want to do is continue scaling what we have built. And we want those revenues to go from 5 to 50 million in the next 12 to 18 months. That's kind of our goal. And we want to have more customers. We want to grow our team and so forth. But also an important part of our journey is solving deeper problems for the industry, because that's how we began our journey. And this is what the All Rights of tomorrow kind of looks like. And RightStream is the subscription service that we spoke about before. And if you look at the different layers within the slide, so currently, where my cursor is, this is what we have built, which is the streaming platforms. And it's a subscription service that we have a number of streamers connected to us today. So it's a monetization mechanism. The next thing that we actually want to build, and we're now looking to implement blockchain technology to actually take us to that next level, is 2 other layers. So remember I talked to you about how content is created and the challenges that I myself faced as a producer, right? I came up with a great idea, and then how do I get that funded? So we are creating a new layer, which will basically be based on blockchain. So effectively, if you think about every piece of film and television content, it's a non-fungible token. I'm sure a lot of you would be familiar if you're tech companies. So every piece of film and TV content is an NFT. And so what we're now going to enable people to do is participate in the creation of these NFTs by contributing, by having fractional ownership. So a producer will be able to go to our platform in the not too distant future and say they have a great script idea, and they'll be able to share that script idea and say, I'm looking for $1 million worth of funding to actually make this movie. And then the community can get involved in that, and people can have fractional ownership, so they can say, hey, I want to give you $100,000 and I'll own a piece of this film. And by owning a piece of this film, I'll be able to benefit from all the revenues that are generated by this film in future. So now the opportunity is that when the next Star Wars gets created, when the next Game of Thrones gets conceptualized, that the everyday person can actually participate in that, can have a piece of ownership of that, and share in the success of that project. So this platform effectively will allow people to have fractional ownership. And then when that content is created, we already have a network of streaming platforms that we have built through our subscription service. So we've got a natural monetization mechanism to actually release this new film or this new TV series that's been created on our platform. And what it does for us is gives us a unique position in the market that similar to what Netflix did, right? So initially they were licensing content from other people, and then they started creating their own content. And that's what really set Netflix apart from their competitors. And that's what makes them who they are today. So we will be able to do something similar, because now we'll have a platform for the creation of content and for people to be able to fund that content through effectively crowdfunding. And then for that content to be streamed through our network of platforms. But then we want to take it to another level, that we will also have a consumer app that we will launch probably towards the end of next year, which will allow people to watch content via our own app. Because often what happens is today on our marketplace platform, we have 80,000 hours, close to 100,000 hours of content. It's a lot of content that doesn't get broadcast in every country on the planet. And so typically content, it does not, if you're lucky, your content gets seen in 20 or 30 countries or 40 countries, but there's still a big chunk that gets remained unmonetized. And what we want to do is have our own platform so that content that's not being monetized in certain geographies can be monetized through our own platform and through our own streaming app. And because we have this vast catalog, then we'll be able to increase the monetization potential for all of our rights holders, for all of our content creators, and fully allow them to leverage this ecosystem that we're creating, that a piece of content that when it comes to our all rights marketplace, it can be monetized via the rights stream ecosystem through our subscription partners. It'll be able to be monetized through our own streaming app. And also, say you've created a TV series and you want to create a sequel to that, you can get that funded through our platform as well. So our end goal is to become a holistic platform that solves multiple problems for the industry. And we are looking to have our own currency associated with this on the blockchain, which will allow us to actually really grow our business exponentially, because now through our own currency, we'll be able to reward people that watch content. We'll be able to reward streamers that join our network as well. We'll be able to get more viewer analytics, because our viewers will be able to basically give us feedback and earn our currency, our tokens effectively. And this will create a very vibrant economy that basically empowers the creator to come up with new ideas, to get the ideas funded, to have it monetized. And it's the end goal. If I kind of complete the cycle, I started off as a creator in this industry, and my vision is to empower the creator, to democratize the creator economy, and to take it out of the hands of the few forces that control it. So the big studios control the major productions, the broadcasters control production of TV shows and so forth, distributors control the distribution and monetization of content. And with what we are doing, we can now put the power back in the hands of the creator and allow them to get true realization of the value that they have created, to actually be able to earn through that, to bring their ideas to life a lot faster than they could. And just one example that I'll give you, a statistic, that in the United States, if you want to get a TV series made, 1 in 2,200 pitches that go to a network like a CBS or an NBC or ABC, 1 in 2,200 actually get made into a series. So, and that's if you get to present to the network, and the odds of them even giving you a meeting are so low. So it's most creative ideas go unexplored, unexploited, unmonetized because of the constraints of the current ecosystem. And what we want to do is remove all those constraints and free up this ecosystem so that creativity can really thrive and foster, that content can travel across different borders. We're looking at different ways to actually do that using AI technology as well, in subtitling and dubbing, so that if we take away the language barriers for content, then suddenly more people are open to watching that content, the borders open up, and our library of 100,000 hours becomes 1 million hours overnight, because we have exponentially increased the reach for that content. So this is kind of our next step in our evolution, and everything sustains, is self-sustaining. It's a cyclical system, and we believe that next year we'll go on to do bigger and better things with this. So with that kind of, I'll wrap up the journey that we have done of where we came from and where we're going to, and kind of move on to the learnings, I guess, that I've personally had, and then we'll move into a Q&A session, because I do want to leave some time for that. So my personal learnings, it's really important to listen to your customer, to the market, to what they're saying, because often we believe that, we've come up with a great idea and people are going to love it, but maybe they don't, and maybe it doesn't work in the real world. But it's great to get into the real world with the idea that you have and experiment with that, but then always be listening for signs, because if you're not generating revenues, then that means that unless your business model is not to generate revenues, like Facebook did a long time back, then it's okay. But if your business model is to generate revenues and you're not, then that means that you don't have a product market fit, that your customers don't, buy into your story as yet. And it may be that the story just needs some modification. It doesn't mean that you throw the whole thing away. It's like, once we got our right stream business model working, we actually have a lot of transactions happening on the all rights model, because what we found is that the streamers, once they bought a subscription service, they naturally need to buy some exclusive titles and premium titles, and now they're buying that through our rights platform. So they support each other. So we haven't thrown our initial business model out the door, but because we created a new business model, it's allowed the initial business model to thrive as well. And they work as an ecosystem. So that's super critical. So listen to the market. The second point is choose your partners very, very carefully. A startup is a long journey. It's, when we come up with an idea, we're so passionate about it, and we want to bring people into our business, and we want to grow this quickly, but be extremely careful that if you have the wrong partners, they will drag you down, and they could even sabotage your success. And so, interview them in every single way you possibly can, do reference checks to make sure that you have got very, very tight paperwork in place when you bring someone on board. Make sure that they're delivering value to you as well. I've had partners that came in and that were good for a certain part of the journey, and then, but they couldn't sustain the whole journey. They couldn't deliver the value that our business needed, and then learn when to let go of them as well. It's, not everyone is there to stay the entire course of the journey through to an exit, but they would have earned the equity and whatnot, and they'll benefit eventually. The other thing is constantly innovate. And we could have simply said, we built RightStream, it's a great business model, and just keep doing what we're doing. But then pretty sure our competitors, especially the ones in Singapore, and there's only one company in Singapore, you can look them up who they are, that will copy exactly what we do, because that's how some companies operate. And if you don't innovate, then you're going to get left behind, because your competitor might execute better than you in some areas. You never know. So you got to be thinking of what's next for your business. You never rest on your laurels, and you're always looking at taking the business to the next level, whether it be in terms of geographies, whether it be in terms of technology, or complete transformation, and seeing, can you even disrupt yourself? And big companies like Amazon are constantly doing that. So constantly innovate. And the other point is learn to pivot. It's like, if something is not working, it's kind of madness to keep doing the same thing over and over again and hope that it's eventually going to work. Of course, you got to give it your best shot, and you got to give it time. You got to constantly run experiments, as we learned in the whole SOSV program, that it's only by experimentation and by conducting, literally interviews with the customers and listening to what the market says, that whether it's working or not. But if it's not working, then talk to your team, talk to yourself, and don't rest till you have figured out what that pivot is. And because that's the difference between success and failure, between living or dying, literally, for the startup. So it's not an easy journey. None of it is easy. And for me, the experience has been, creating my previous business, starting that from scratch. It was incredibly hard. But the things that worked for me were persistence. You never ever give up. It's like, in my book, failure is never an option. You set your mind to it, you do whatever it takes, and you network, you leverage your relationships, you talk to people, and you will get there. It's if you don't give up, then something else has to give in. And that's always been my motto, and that's what's kept me going through the ups and downs of my production business, of All Rights, and through deceptions, through everything that we've gone through. It's what's helped us get to where we are, and I believe that is what will help us get to a successful exit, and for it to be a business that stands toe-to-toe with the likes of Netflix or Amazon globally. That's kind of all I have for you guys in terms of our journey, our learnings, industry knowledge. There's a lot more, of course, that I can share with you, but I want to open up the floor for questions, because I think the questions might spark other things that I may not have covered, and which I'm happy to do. So if that's okay with you guys, then Sharon, can I open it up for questions?
Now, thank you for your presentations. It talks about many different trends and developments and consumers and customers as well. And I think that we have some questions from the audience. Maybe you can speak up. Okay, any other questions would like to speak up? You can either type it in the chat rooms or raise them directly orally. Yes, I think that many of us get it, what you said. Is there other things from Justin to Wilson? Yes, I think there's a question in the chat rooms, but I think okay. So yes, I think she can ask the question now. The question I want to ask is that after you launch your reality shows, how did you receive feedback from consumers or viewers? Do you design questionnaires? Do you do survey? Because in the past, for example, you got the license from US reality shows and then put it into Asia, and you later on develop your own reality shows. I want to know, how do you design contents to attract viewers from different countries? How did you verify that these contents are popular to the local audience there? The second question I want to ask is that after you have this platform, when you are designing your platform and your business model, and what is your major advantage in the market, and how to differentiate yourself from other competitors in the market?
What was that a question?
Riyadh, did you hear the translation?
No, I didn't. I'm not getting the translation.
Oh, I see. You should click. There's a button on the.
Oh, okay. Interpretation. Sorry.
Yeah, and you switch to English, and there's a translator doing the translation.
Okay. My apologies. Can I? Sorry to ask, but can I have that repeated?
Okay, so the question is that after you launched the reality programs, how did you get viewers' feedbacks? Did you design questionnaires, or did you do any surveys, so in order for them to understand and to see how they respond to your reality shows? And how do you design contents that meet different demands from different markets? So the second question is that after you had this platform, what do you think that what is the major advantage in this platform, and how do you differentiate yourself from other competitors in the market?
Okay, great. Thank you for those questions. For the first question, we broadcast on, when I create a show, for example, I produced a show called The Apartment that would broadcast on the Fox network. And so the viewership information comes through ratings agencies. So there's companies like Nielsen that actually conduct surveys, and they get feedback from on viewership. But it's not detailed feedback. It's basically literally how many minutes of your content was watched, or how many episodes was watched in the series. But you don't get detailed information about who watched it, or whether they like certain aspects of that show, and so forth. And that information is usually subscribed to by the broadcast network, like Fox or Sony, etc. And then they will share that information with us. What was the second question? Sorry.
The second question is about the platform, and what is the major advantage for yourself regarding to this platform?
So the platform, if I look at our traditional business model that we launched with, which was a transactional business model, then we have a few competitors in the market that do a similar model. So there's in Singapore, there's Vueler. In the US is Rights Trade, TRX, a handful of them, not too many, 3 or 4 of them. However, the new business model that we've launched, which is a subscription service, currently there's nobody else doing it. So we are the only platform that offers that service, and that's our unique advantage. And I guess the other advantage that we have against our competitors that are doing similar things but not the same things is the team that we have. Because I come from the entertainment industry with fairly deep relationships, we have managed to attract people like a gentleman called Eddie. He used to head up Star World in Asia, and he was the head of programming for about 15 different channels. We've got Natalie as our chief content officer. She's ex Fashion TV. She was chief content officer for Fashion TV globally as well, helped build that platform from nothing. And so we have an awesome team. So I think it's a combination of having the right product that nobody else has today in the market. And I'm sure they will copy it, and we will keep innovating and improving on our product. That's what's going to keep us ahead of the game. But also having the right team, that's, I believe, the key to our success. And I guess the third key is we have pre-existing industry relationships. So we can walk into a major Hollywood studio and have a conversation, which our competitors can't do that easily. So the relationships are important, but also the other two things that I've mentioned. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you for that answer. I think there's another questions from Mr. Tsai. Hello, I am Hikari from a music company. And first of all, you mentioned about NFT. I encountered a recent situations. I purchased the reproduction rights of a old songs in America. So just to make sure, Riaz, can you hear the translation?
Yes, I can. Thank you. It's working now.
So, okay, we can continue to ask the question. So typically, when we buy the royalty and it's calculated based on how many CDs you are selling. So, however, we are charging everyone with NFT. So, but it's difficult to explain to right holders regarding to NFT. So how did you convince and persuade customers regarding to an NFT? How do you explain to them so that these right owners will understand how NFT works? And,
okay.
and also the second question is that when we just start the platform and the customers may say that, oh, you're a new platform, how do you convince the initial customers to join in the platform and join the service? How do you convince the initial suppliers?
Okay, so the first question is with regards NFTs. The way we convince people about NFTs is we explain to them that it's about, for the rights holders, it's about protecting their rights. So in television and film today, there's no global central registry of where rights can be recorded and accounted for. And so when we explain to our rights holders, we say that we're now going to provide you a global registry, which will allow you to actually claim ownership of that of your rights. And it's on the blockchain, which makes it transparent, which means that it can be authenticated, that your rights cannot be challenged by a third party. And this basically helps you, and it's a service we are providing to you. So we're not charging you for the service. So initially, when we do this, we want to make it super easy for people, because people that are not from crypto, blockchain, etc., they don't understand the concept of NFT. So it's an education process, and it takes a little while. But then we explain to them the benefits that if they come on board, not only are they able to have a claim to the NFT, but now they can actually start transacting in that NFT as well. That imagine me as a producer, I've got, say, a show called The Apartment, and I'm sitting on this asset, and I want to realize the value of that asset. Now I can sell fractional ownership of that asset. And I'll say, look, I need some cash. I just want to sell 10% of my show to someone, and they can earn the revenues from that. So the fractional ownership of the NFT. So now we've suddenly created a new marketplace, a new economy that doesn't exist today. And it's not even possible to do it in the way the industry operates today. So we start offering more benefits. The other thing is that we will be incentivizing people that join us and create these NFTs, that they will get a greater share of the revenues through our streaming platforms as well. So there'll be a monetary benefit for them to encourage them to join us as well. So ultimately, there's a few levers that one can pull that effectively you incentivize people through money, through earnings and so forth. You incentivize them through ease of use, and then you educate them that why it's beneficial to them. And what I see is that blockchain adoption is growing exponentially across the planet, and this will become very mainstream in 2 to 3 years' time. Right now, we're going to be at the forefront, and it's important to be at the forefront because we want to be the next Amazon. We want to be that next company that's becomes, truly huge within the space. So that's the answer to the first question. The second thing is, how do you bring people to the platform, especially when you're starting out from scratch? And what we did was two things. One was, because we have a team that has industry relationships, initially we tapped our relationships and we reached out to people that we knew and said, hey, come and join us. And it took a bit of convincing, but we said, it's free to join. There's no cost to you. There's only upside. You're going to make money once you join us. And that was the attraction. Second thing we did was we spread the net wide. We did digital marketing, and we didn't know who would come in, and we had a lot of people come in through digital marketing that we wouldn't have expected. And these were a lot of the small independent producers, the small independent streamers, and these people we would have never even known through our own network. So the combination of these two factors helped us get adoption for the platform and attracted people to the platform. I hope that addresses your question.
好，没关系，那我们进下一个问题。那接下来是台湾吧。
老师好，听得到我声音吗？
Yes, I can.
OK， 那就是如同在字面上面所叙述的，就是其实我们大家都会有很多很想要新创的内容，那它可能会涉及的是一些平台的建制，又或者是一些其实就是产品的开发等等的。那想要理解说，因为我们总是会想要知道受众的需求，然后一定会老师刚刚有提到的是实验跟尝试的过程。那老师会怎么去规划，就是我们的最小可行单位 MVP？ 那我们就是能够获得有效的回馈评估，但是又能够控制我们自己内部的成本，不会在初期就把资金给消耗完毕。谢谢老师。
Okay, so I'll tell you how I initially did it and how I would do it now as well. So initially, when I came up with the All Rights platform, I did not think about experimenting, and I started building an MVP, and I thought I had to build a product. And that was not a cost-effective way of doing it. Spent a lot of money, and that's not what I recommend to anyone. When we went through the pivot, we didn't build a product. We basically talked to customers to see, like when people came to our platform, we started pitching the business model, and we had like the pilot that I told you about. We started talking to our sellers, but we didn't have anything built. We didn't invest in any technology at all at that point. And what we wanted to do was really see if people actually wanted what we were going to build, because we had a hypothesis that we have a platform, or we were going to build this content as a service, and we thought it's going to work, but we didn't know it was going to work. So once we talked to a few people and they said, hey, this is really great, we actually said, okay, if it's great, then let's sign a deal. And even at that point, we hadn't signed, we didn't have a product. And we were designing a product, but designing is basically, between me and my CTO, we come up with ideas and workflows and screen designs and whatnot. We weren't investing a lot of money. And it's only when our first customer said, yes, I want to sign up. And we said, fantastic, we can get you live in 2 months. And we signed that deal. And because we had a customer that was willing to go on the journey with us, we said, okay, we now have to build a product. And so we started building that MVP, and we figured out, okay, what's the minimum that we need to deliver to this customer to get them live? So not all the bells and whistles and not all the encryption and everything that we do today. We built a very simple business that we could basically get this customer live. And once we had this one customer live, and then we had others coming in, then we started introducing the smarts around the business, because we were getting feedback from our customers on what they actually wanted to see. And so we started building the product based on what our clients wanted, not what we wanted to build. So that way we kept our costs very, very low, and we were agile in our development. And the first version of the product that we had in the market wasn't perfect, and it still isn't perfect. It still needs a lot of work. As with any tech company, it's an evolutionary process. But what we didn't do was burn, tons of cash trying to build a product that nobody wanted. So we literally went and got our customers first. We talked to our customers. We literally signed our first contract before we built anything.
了解，谢谢。
Is that good?
好，
You're
那
welcome.
其他学员还有人有疑问或是想要讨论的部分吗？好，吉雅科技。
听得到我的声音吗？
Yep, I can hear you.
Hi, Riaz. Thank you so much for the talk. It's really insightful. And I'm Melody from Gilead Cloud. We are an AI video creation platform that creates videos for SMBs, and we're basically a SaaS, like a software service.
Okay,
And
very
we're
cool.
currently at our pivot stage, which we're trying to create a light model for that's easier to use for small, medium enterprises. So my question is that when you're creating your pivot, you will have a bunch of seed users. Well, not a bunch, like a few seed users, and you will get a lot of feedbacks. How do you choose and filter what features to keep and what features to let go based on your customer feedbacks, because they will have a limited imagination of what they want on your platform. Yeah,
Yes.
so just wondering if you have any thought on that.
So the things to focus on are the things that will actually generate revenue and that'll serve a real business need. So in our instance, when we are developing our product, the subscription service, we had different feedback on, hey, we want to do an integration with your platform so that we can give our viewers all the choices, and then they can select the content mix and so forth. And really interesting idea, but it would have taken us a while to build that. And ultimately, that's a great idea for one customer. But then what we did was we tried to listen to multiple customers and see what is the common denominator, what is the problem that we can solve for many people rather than one person. And even if an idea is fantastic and one person thinks this is awesome, it's important to focus on things that can be scaled and that appeal to a wider demographic, a wider variety of customers. So don't use an kind of a sample of one to make a decision on whether to build or something or not. If you've got 10 people, then ask those 10 people to say, okay, here are the things that we can build, but you can only select 3 of them, for example, and see which 3 they pick. Does that help, Melody? Melody?
Yes.
Okay, great.
That helps. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. You're welcome. Shall I switch back to English now? Interpretation?
Yes, please.
Okay.
We have about 10 minutes left. Any other questions? If not, I think we'll conclude the sessions. I think that Jesse and Wilson will deliver information to everyone. If you need further contact, please feel free to do so. This concludes our session. Thank you, Riaz, for your presentations. And I think that we have learned a lot from your startup journey. And thank you, Riaz, for answering our questions. Once again, thank you for participation. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Great to see you all. Have a great day. Good luck with your own startups. All the best.